Reporting in Florida, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She is also the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee. And Minnesota Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. She is a former Republican presidential candidate and founder of the Tea Party caucus on the House side. First of all, you're both mothers, so our special thanks today for taking the time to be with us. And Congresswoman Bachmann, I know you just had eye surgery too, so a double thank you to you for showing up this morning and helping us out. Let me start with the two of you with the other piece of news that has been throughout the week, one of the things we focused on, and that is these missing Nigerian school children. Are either of you satisfied with the extent, whatever extent that is, that the Obama administration has reacted to that? Let's start with you, Congresswoman Bachmann.
Well, this was something that didn't just come up now. Boko Haram has been on the run and on the rise for years. I put a letter out several years ago calling on a crackdown on the Boko Haram. It is a foreign terrorist organization. It's important that the United States designates it as such, as it is now, which we're grateful. But again, we root out terrorism wherever it is, and I think that the earlier we push against these radical organizations, the better. I think more could have been done a couple of years ago to help prevent this, but this is on the rise, and it has to be quelled.
But right now, it sounds like you are satisfied with the Obama administration's response thus far.
We have to continue to push back, and this is something, again, where this isn't partisan. We all have to work together. It's national security.
Yeah. Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz?
In 2012, it's important to note that the Obama administration designated a number of the leaders of Boko Haram as terrorists, right, and now have sent personnel and military advisory assistance and the people who on the ground from the United States who are going to be able to provide technical and specific intelligence advisory commitments to make sure that we can do everything we can to help find those girls. That's the #1 priority, and I agree with that. We have to make sure that this is a bipartisan focus. That the United States needs to, as President Obama has committed, to provide that assistance to find those girls.
The other foreign policy issue that has resurfaced, at least in the headlines, has been the probe of Benghazi. Now the House, which is majority Republicans, as I'm sure you both know, has decided to have a select committee to look into the circumstances before, during, and after the attack on Benghazi when 4 Americans were killed. First to you, Congresswoman Bachmann. There seems to be some fear within the Republican Party, and you see some of it out loud and hear some of it privately, that there is a way you could push this too far and make it, and you, meaning Republicans, could push it too far and make it seem so political that it backfires.
Well, I think when it comes to this issue of Benghazi, what happened was so appalling that people simply want to have answers. We don't take it lightly. Security threats are nothing to take lightly. In Benghazi, in Libya, when the events happened, this was a highly volatile time. There were over 4,000 threats that had come. And then when the event occurred, there was no military rescue that was ordered. There's questions about that. And the big question in many people's minds is, where did this false narrative come from to blame a video rather than the terrorist actions of Ansar al-Sharia, which were evident on the ground? So I think what this committee is doing is taking a very careful look and at a very deliberate pace to go through depositions of people on the ground to find out the truth of what happened. That's all people want, is the truth.
Let me show you a USA Today poll asking folks what the most important issue is right now in their lives, what they want, politicians want to address. Jobs at 27%, health care 21%, federal budget deficit 19%, on down the line. Security and terrorism is at 7%. So my question to you was, is there a possibility that Republicans can look off-key with this? I know you say people are interested, but when you ask them, what's your most important issue, they're looking for you all to do something about jobs and health care and the federal budget deficit.
Well, I don't disagree at all with the numbers that you gave. I think they're accurate, but people can walk and chew gum at the same time. It doesn't diminish the fact that we need to have answers about what happened on that fateful night with 4 Americans who lost their lives. We need to get answers. This cannot be politicized. It has to be done, again, in a very thoughtful, deliberate way, which I trust and believe Trey Gowdy and the committee will do. I'm very impressed with their approach. And I think, again, we have to have answers.
Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, look, there have been many probes into Benghazi, as I'm sure you would point out. But how can Democrats not participate in this probe? Do you think that there are no more questions about Benghazi? Are you satisfied you know why a U.S. ambassador was in a place where there had been so many warnings, seemingly sort of underguarded? I mean, do you feel like you understand why the administration said what it said after Benghazi? Are all the questions answered to you?
Candy, I think what's important to note here that keeps getting either put aside or lacks focus is that there are families who have been through a really terrible tragedy. And the Republicans in the House of Representatives, after 13 hearings, 50 briefings, 25,000 pages of documents that have been released, and a commission that was put together by Secretary Clinton that has fully examined what happened and put forward recommendations, all of which are being implemented. Those things have all occurred. This has been looked at so exhaustively that Buck McKeon, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, just last week criticized Darrell Issa, the Republican chairman of the Government Oversight Committee, because the last witness, a brigadier general that he brought before the committee to yet again investigate Benghazi, brought nothing new forward. This is in the words of their Republican Armed Services chairman. So just a minute. So the bottom line here is that the Republicans have clearly lost the ability, because we've had such a precipitous drop among Republicans even in their fervor for repealing the Affordable Care Act. They are clearly doing this to drive their turnout and clean up their base.
That is not true at all.
Michelle, I didn't interrupt you. Excuse me. Michelle, I didn't interrupt you, so I appreciate if you not interrupt me.
To the question first, and then Congresswoman Bachmann, I'll let you back in on this, but to the question, can you just not participate in this when there are so many things? I mean, a new document came out. What precipitated this was a document that the committee didn't know about, came out this week, that certainly made it look as though the administration certainly was shaping the message in a way that turned out not to be true. So, can you afford just to turn your back on this? Doesn't it then look like we don't want to know what went on?
Well, the Republicans are in the majority in the House of Representatives, so they can essentially do whatever they want. In creating the select committee, they have to, in order to make sure that the process is credible, which the way they've set it up, it's clearly not going to be and has an outcome that's been predetermined. They have to treat the minority fairly.
That's absolutely
right now,
true.
Okay, let me let Congresswoman.
No, it is true, and let me tell you why it's not fair.
Okay,
because
I think it's important.
We don't even have
the
ability
is a dialogue and not a monologue.
Be assured they're able to participate in the interviews of the witnesses.
And the subpoenas.
We don't have consultation power on the subpoenas.
Understood.
So if it's fair, then we'll participate.
Candy, it's really clear that the Democrats have tried to sabotage this process from the very beginning. We shouldn't do that.
We don't have the ability to
when
sabotage
we have unanswered questions about 4 people who've died. We've got to get to the bottom of this. This is reality. We have to get to the bottom of this.
The bottom that we have to get to.
And unfortunately, that's what's been happening with the Democrats.
To bring the perpetrators
they have been politicizing, and that's wrong. That's wrong to do about people who've died.
Let me move the two of you on, because I've got one more subject I want to talk
beginning to end.
I want to talk to you about one more subject before I have to let you go. And that is, we have some new poll numbers out asking folks about the President's Affordable Care Act. And the question was, what should Congress do with the health care law? Keep it or make some changes? 61%. Keep it or make some changes. Repeal it? 38%. Congresswoman Bachmann, just in brief, what does that do to the rallying election year cry of Republicans, which is repeal?
Well, I think clearly this is the issue that the Democrats have been running away from. It was the signature issue of President Obama, the passage of the Affordable Care Act. Only one party passed this bill, and people are very concerned because
of Americans
it's disrupting
say they
their
want
lives.
to keep it. I mean, 61% say, look, keep it. or make changes.
But 55% of the American people in a Pew study said that they're very unhappy with the Affordable Care Act, so they want it changed. That's really what the result is. They're not happy with this bill.
Why.
They want it changed. And now, just in the last day or so, Debbie, you had your turn, now it's mine. In the last 2 days, we found that there's another report that just came out, how this is hurting the bottom line of major businesses, from GE to UPS to Dollar General. This is hitting their earnings because the Affordable Care Act is extremely
the bottom line
unaffordable.
In the
Not
interest
just
of speed
for businesses,
the bottom line
for
here
individuals
is that
as well. It's very unpopular, and the Democrats are running away as far as they can from it in this upcoming election.
Here, let me,
8 million
Debbie
people
Wasserman
signed
Schultz,
up.
let me bring you in here, and your response to this. Now, look, most people think it ought to be changed, but does this make you think that more Democrats ought to embrace it?
Well, Democrats have embraced it. What we've said all along is that if there are problems that arise with the Affordable Care Act, we should, if there are problems that arise with the Affordable Care Act, we should work together in a bipartisan way to address those. But repealing the Affordable Care Act and going back to the bad old days when insurance companies could drop us or deny us coverage for pre-existing conditions, as a breast cancer survivor with a pre-existing condition, I joined the 129 million Americans who also have pre-existing conditions in wanting to never go back to that time. There are 8 million more people now that have health care. The Republicans have lost this as an issue that they can gin their base up. That's why they've turned to this select committee on Benghazi.
So
I'm afraid I have to cut it off there for both of you.
This is the issue the Democrats are running from, and rightfully so.
And getting this economy turned around, as you said, because those are the priorities of the American people.
Congresswoman, I thank you both so much for your...
We're proud to do it.
Thank you both so much for your time. Next time I'm going to have you in studio. I might have better control here, but thanks. Listen, happy Mother's Day to both of you, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Michele Bachmann. We did dig up some pictures of your beautiful families. We hope all of you have a great day.
Oh, thank you.
Up next, he wrote